areas, and we hope that this becomes a much bigger reality than it is now. So one of the issues that you mentioned was on technologies and the array of technologies that are available. So maybe we can transition to Ed, who has been specializing on electric MECS program, and would like to hear from you on how you see that going and how you see that because it is linked to availability of electricity also.
Chandra, thank you so much. What I wanted to do was actually to take an opportunity to, I think, draw attention to, this is a knowledge cafe, so actually knowledge is really important in terms of the way in which we address this issue. And one of the things is MECS, you talk of it as something outside, but of course MECS is something very much inside ESMAP, in the sense that it's a partnership between ESMAP and Loughborough. And I think what we bring to this whole area is a focus on what we know and what we don't know. And I think that's really where the World Bank is massively important in that regard. So I just want to say a little bit about four things. The first of which is, and I think all three of our speakers have talked about it, data. And the World Bank is a repository for much of the most important data that we have about these issues. But frequently it's not utilised when we look at the political level. I'll take one example. I'm going on to New York tonight for the session in the UN General Assembly tomorrow on the deep dive into SDG 7. One of the problems we have with understanding the progress or lack of it on clean cooking is that the only data that we base this on is the primary fuel use. So when we look at whether or not we're making progress, the only data that's there is primary fuel use. All of the technologies we've just been talking about, ethanol, LPG, and electricity, are coming into use as secondary sources at the moment, but are increasing really quite rapidly. So in terms of understanding where we are, it's really important that we're able to get that into the international system for monitoring where we are, and that we can properly measure the progress that's being made. I think another example is when we start thinking about how we understand how communities and households are utilising fuels. The MTF that the World Bank have developed is probably the most impressive way of getting access to that data, but it's expensive. And so we need the financing to go into understanding better, for example, do people that have access to electricity utilise it for cooking? If not, why not? What else are they spending their money on, and so on and so forth. So that's a really important point. Secondly, is there is a tendency a little bit in the debate to say the reason that we haven't had success is that there's not enough money going in. Absolutely, that's one of the major important factors. But the other thing is that we have got it wrong. We have previously got it wrong, and we need to understand from those lessons and work out where we should be investing. And one of the biggest problems is if we then go into it saying, oh, we have all the answers, we know what we're doing, actually it's going to be very, very different in different locations. And understanding the specific needs in individual countries and having the detailed conversations with different organisations, forms of governance, etc., is massively important. That is also very expensive. It's really important that we have resources not just for stoves and taking stoves out into communities, but also for the effective governance structures of any work that is done on that basis. And the other thing that's related to that is that the vast majority of people that do not have access to clean cooking at the moment do not have access because they don't have access to people that are supplying stoves. They don't have access because they're poor. So therefore, how do we address that poverty? And clean cooking is but one aspect of that. How do we address the bank's massive knowledge on understanding of social programs, social payments, all of those kinds of areas is another important part that has to be there in understanding how we address this issue. I'm aware I'm talking quite in a lot of detail. Just two other really small points. Firstly, there are mechanisms for carbon finance at the moment that are already in operation. Under MECS, we developed the metered methodology. It's already being utilised by companies, and it's being utilised in ways that are already being effective in delivering on the higher tier fuels. So we already have companies utilising the methodology. We have companies that are drawing in funds into that methodology, and we also have really innovative ways in which they're doing that. ATEC, for example, have a program with the Fair Climate Fund where 75% of the value of the credit is being sent back to the user immediately to the mobile phone that they've used for the purchase. And the final thing is, whilst carbon finance is massively important, it will only ever be a partial answer to this question because it will only last for a certain period of time. The answer to this question is about long-term sources of finance that will address that affordability gap and actually have a long-term sustainable way of building the capacities of the communities in order to access it. Long-term, that future will be electric. And that means that the bank has a massive responsibility in making those connections between the expertise that exists on electrification and that which is emerging and beginning to take hold in the field of clean cooking. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Very interesting points here. Yes, absolutely. In the informal knowledge cafe format, I think, but I should recap that the issue of data has come up a couple of times. The issue of methodology.